In the sweltering heat of a Houston summer in 1965, police made a discovery so horrifying it would shock the city for decades. Human body parts neatly wrapped in the refrigerator of a quiet suburban home. It wasn't the scene of a mafia hit or a crime of passion gone wrong. It was the apparent work of one man, Charles Rogers, who allegedly murdered, dismembered, and preserved the bodies of his own parents before disappearing forever. This is the full story of the Icebox Murders, one of Texas's most disturbing unsolved cases. A perfect storm of psychological torment, conspiracy, and calculated violence that continues to puzzle investigators and true crime fans to this day. Welcome back to The Sky Opened, a true crime YouTube channel where we dive deep in lesser-known cases. If you like what you see here, please subscribe, leave a like, and comment below what you thought about the case. Born in 1921, Charles Frederick Rogers was gifted. He earned a degree in nuclear physics and served as a naval pilot during World War II, flying reconnaissance missions and working in highly technical roles. After the war, he became a seismologist, mapping oil reserves and doing contract work for major petroleum companies, which brought in significant income. Despite his intelligence and skills, Charles became increasingly reclusive in the 1950s. He abruptly quit his job at Shell Oil in 1957 with no explanation. From that point on, he was rarely seen in public. Neighbors described the home as eerily quiet, except for occasional strange sounds at night. They knew the elderly parents, Fred and Edwina, but many didn't realize Charles even lived there. He reportedly communicated with his parents through notes slid under doors, and some said they hadn't seen him in years. The reasons for his withdrawal were never fully explained, but theories range from mental health struggles to paranoia linked to his past military service. Some even claim he was involved in intelligence operations during or after the war, which plays into later conspiracy theories. While outwardly mundane, the Rogers household was a deeply toxic environment. Fred Rogers, once a real estate man, was in poor health and allegedly physically abusive throughout Charles's childhood. Edwina was manipulative and dominating, and both parents were suspected of exploiting Charles financially. Investigators later found that Fred and Edwina had been forging Charles' signature to access his oil royalty checks, siphoning thousands of dollars from his accounts. There's reason to believe Charles was aware of the theft. Over time, this betrayal, combined with decades of emotional abuse, likely bred a deep resentment. But Charles was not someone who would lash out impulsively. His education and military background and methodical nature suggest that if he snapped, he would do so in a calculated and irreversible way. On June 23, 1965, Houston police responded to a call from concerned relatives who hadn't heard from Edwina and Fred in days. They entered the home and found it suspiciously clean, almost too clean. Everything was in order until they opened the refrigerator. Inside were wrapped packages of what appeared to be meat, arranged on shelves as if they belonged there. But when an officer opened the vegetable bin, the horror revealed itself. Fred and Edwina Rogers' heads, and further down, other dismembered body parts. Fred had been bludgeoned with a hammer, then had his eyes gouged out and genitals removed. Edwina had been brutally beaten and shot execution style. The bodies had been drained of blood in the bathroom, which investigators said had been meticulously cleaned. No blood was found in the rest of the house. The precision of the dismemberment led authorities to believe the killer had medical or surgical knowledge, or at least a familiarity with anatomy and tools. This pointed directly to Charles. Police discovered Charles's attic room locked from the inside. Once breached, they found a secret escape hatch behind a closet, which led into the attic and out through the garage. It was an intentional, prepared exit route, suggesting not just an impulsive crime, but a carefully orchestrated plan. Investigators found a bloodied saw, cleaning supplies, and signs that Charles had staged the scene to delay discovery. His car was later found at Houston Hobby Airport, though there was no flight record or evidence that he had actually boarded a plane. No surveillance, no sightings, and no paper trail. He was gone. In the 1990s, journalists Hugh and Martha Gardenier published a book titled The Icebox Murders, in which they dug deep into Charles's life. Their theory that Charles was a CIA operative, possibly involved in covert activities during the Cold War, and maybe even tied to the JFK assassination. According to their investigation, Charles may have had ties to David Ferrie and Lee Harvey Oswald, two known figures in the JFK conspiracy universe. The theory claims Charles murdered his parents, not out of personal rage, but because they were about to expose him, or were liabilities to a deeper operation. Most experts consider this theory far-fetched, but it does raise questions about Charles's government ties. Records of his work are conspicuously absent, and some aspects of his history remain classified. Over the decades, there have been alleged sightings of Charles in places like Mexico, Honduras, and even Canada. Some believe he assumed a new identity and lived out his days in obscurity. A man matching his description reportedly died in Honduras in the 1980s, but the identity was never confirmed. In 1975, Charles was declared legally dead in absentia. His case remains open in name, but there has been no activity, no DNA match, and no verifiable trace of him since 1965. The Icebox Murders have inspired books, documentaries, and numerous podcasts. The house on Driscoll Street was eventually demolished, but it remained a Houston urban legend for decades. Teenagers dared each other to break in. Some swore the house was haunted. Neighbors treated it like a cursed landmark. But beyond the folklore lies a darker truth. A man may have gotten away with one of the most gruesome parricides in American history. And whether Charles Rogers was a brilliant madman, a victim of parental abuse, or a spook with a dark past, no one can deny the meticulous execution of the crime. Nearly 6 decades later, the Icebox Murders remain one of Texas's most chilling cold cases. It's a story of quiet rage, dark secrets, and a vanishing act so complete it's almost poetic. Charles Rogers didn't just disappear. He erased himself from existence. And maybe that was the point. Maybe for Charles, the act wasn't just revenge. It was a final escape from his parents, his past, and a world he no longer wanted to live in. Whatever the truth is, one thing is certain. The silence left behind is louder than the crime itself. Thanks for watching. Please make sure to subscribe so you're always dialed into true crime cases. Also, leave a comment down below what you thought about the case.